The Parable of the Wasteland. Part 1, The Ash World and the One Who Walks. Prologue, what was left behind after the fires and the long silence. The world did not end, it forgot. Cities stood like broken instruments, strings rusted, keys missing. Rivers flowed in wrong directions after dams failed and land sank. Words changed meaning. Maps became lies. Old machines slept like dead gods whose names no one remembered. Most people survived by habit and fear. A few survived by strength. Fewer still survived by knowing why things worked. In those days, a wanderer walked the roads between dust and ruin. No one knew where the wanderer was born. Some said in a dead city, others said in a moving camp that no longer existed. It was known only that, long before the world burned, the wanderer had listened more than spoken, read more than rested, practiced more than prayed. And when prayer came, it was practiced too. The wanderer carried little, a pack sewn from many eras, a blade kept sharp but rarely drawn, scraps of paper covered in symbols, a battered book whose pages were mismatched and multilingual, a deck of cards worn smooth, and knowledge carried not as memory alone, but as habit. The task was simple and therefore impossible. Open quote, carry the old knowledge through the dead world, test it against reality, discard what lies, preserve what lives, and deliver it to those who can use it without worshiping it. Close quote. This was not a mission given by a king or god. It was a vow made after witnessing how ignorance more than fire had ended the old age. Chapter 1, The Village of Broken Tongues. The first trial lay in a settlement built inside the shell of an airport terminal. The people there spoke fragments of many languages, none fully. Words had drifted, meanings no longer aligned. Arguments often turned violent because no one could be certain what was being promised or threatened. When the wanderer arrived, two groups were preparing to fight over a water pump. Rather than intervene with force, the wanderer listened. They heard loanwords warped by time, gestures whose meanings had shifted, curses mistaken for greetings. The wanderer spoke slowly, first in one language, then another, then with hands, then with pictures drawn in the dust. They translated intent, not just words. Using old linguistic tricks, false friends, cognates, tone shifts, the wanderer untangled the conflict. The pump was shared. A schedule was drawn using symbols instead of writing. Each group thought the wanderer had taken the other's side. That was how peace held. Lesson: words rot. Meaning survives only when carried by someone who understands structure, not vocabulary alone. Chapter 2, The Riddle of the Red Doctor. Beyond the village lay a man in red-stained robes who called himself a healer. He used herbs correctly half the time and poison the other half. People feared him, but depended on him. The wanderer watched. When a child fell ill, the healer prepared a brew that would have killed them. The wanderer interrupted, not by accusation, but by demonstration. They rebuilt the medicine in front of the crowd, explaining the body as a system: heat, fluids, balance. They showed how infection spreads, how wounds rot unseen, how cleanliness saves more lives than prayer. Then they revealed the healer's trick, a stage illusion learned long ago, sleight of hand that made recovery seem miraculous when it was only time and luck. The healer fled. The wanderer stayed long enough to train two apprentices, not in recipes, but in diagnosis. Lesson: healing is not knowing cures. Healing is understanding causes. Chapter 3, The Forest That Eats the Untrained. The wasteland was not all ash. Some places grew wild beyond recognition. A forest swallowed travelers because they mistook it for safety. The wanderer did not. They read the land as text: moss direction, insect density, bird silence. They built shelter without cutting living trees. They trapped without exhausting the soil. They drank water that others died from because they knew how to make it safe, not because they were lucky. When a storm came, they used geometry to anchor their shelter and physics to redirect wind. They left no trace. Lesson: survival is not dominance over nature. It is literacy. Chapter 4, The Bridge of Strength. A ruined bridge spanned a chemical river that burned skin and memory alike. A gang guarded the crossing. They believed strength was proof of worth. The wanderer was challenged. Rather than fight head-on, they used mechanics. They shifted balance, redirected force, used leverage learned from old martial arts that prized efficiency over brutality. Each opponent fell not from injury, but from misunderstanding their own motion. When the leader attacked in rage, the wanderer used strategy, not speed, forcing overextension, using terrain, waiting. The gang let the Wanderer pass. They never rebuilt the bridge. Lesson: strength is wasted without technique. Technique is wasted without understanding. Chapter 5: The City of Signs and Shadows. In a dead city, people survived by deception. Everyone was a liar. Everyone knew it. The Wanderer learned local customs in days, which symbols meant safe passage, which tattoos lied, which smiles warned. They used disguises not to hide, but to fit the story people expected. When captured, they escaped using a children's game turned code. When cornered, they used jokes older than the apocalypse to disarm tension. When threatened, they performed a magic trick so impossible it broke certainty long enough to slip away. Lesson: truth alone does not save you. Knowing how humans behave does. Chapter 6: The Tower of Stars and Cards. At the edge of the city stood a tower where people worshipped patterns they no longer understood. Tarot spreads treated as prophecy, astrology mistaken for fate, the I Ching used as command. The Wanderer climbed the tower. They did not mock the symbols. They explained them as systems for thinking, not gods. Probability, cycles, psychology, decision-making disguised as myth. They demonstrated how drawing a card changed nothing, but changed the mind of the drawer, and thus the future. Some listened, some grew angry. The Wanderer left behind not answers, but questions written in chalk. Chapter 3: The City That Counted Wrong. Beyond the salt flats stood a city with no name, because names changed each season when the numbers demanded it. The city ran on ritual mathematics. Gates opened only at certain intervals. Food was distributed according to ratios no one questioned. Children were assigned trades by sequences passed down like prayers. The people believed the city worked because it had always worked. It did not. The Wanderer watched patterns fail. Water shortages appeared every 13th day. Bridges collapsed after identical spans of use. Entire neighborhoods starved while others overflowed. Not by cruelty, but by arithmetic error compounded over generations. The city's rulers were called calculants. They wore abacuses like relics and treated equations as law rather than models. When the Wanderer spoke of error, the calculants laughed. Numbers, after all, were sacred. So the Wanderer posed puzzles instead. They showed how rounding errors grew like mold. They demonstrated feedback loops using bowls of grain. They drew graphs in ash, explaining why linear thinking collapsed under exponential strain. Then they rebuilt the system, not perfectly, but adaptively. No new numbers were introduced, only understanding. When the city stabilized, the people asked the Wanderer to stay. The Wanderer refused. Lesson: mathematics is not truth, it is a lens. When mistaken for reality, it blinds. Chapter 9: The War of Names Remembered. Two factions prepared to annihilate each other across a canyon filled with old bones. Each believed the other to be ancient enemies. The Wanderer crossed the killing ground unarmed. They listened. Then they told stories, not myths, histories. Records of how the factions had once been one people, how their symbols diverged, how a famine had been misremembered as betrayal, how old propaganda, repeated long enough, had hardened into identity. The Wanderer showed maps whose borders shifted every generation. They recited treaties no one remembered signing. They demonstrated how the same slogans appeared in older conflicts with different names. The leaders accused the Wanderer of lies. So the Wanderer invited elders to speak. Memory defeated rage where weapons could not. The war ended not in peace, but in exhaustion of certainty. Lesson: most wars are fought by the living on behalf of the dead's misunderstandings. Chapter X: The Yellow Sickness. The plague came quietly. Skin yellowed, minds slowed, death followed. People blamed curses, poisoned air, divine punishment. Fires were lit. The sick were driven away. The Wanderer stayed. They observed symptoms. They tested water with simple reagents scavenged from forgotten schools. They asked about diet, soil, containers, cooking methods. The answer was chemistry, not mystery. A new metal had leached into water from makeshift pipes. The solution was not complex: carbon filtration, precipitation, substitution with clay-lined channels. High school knowledge, long ignored, saved 1,000 lives. When the plague ended, the people built shrines. The Wanderer dismantled them. Lesson: ignorance kills more efficiently than disease. Chapter 11: The Siege of the Unread Fortress. A fortress stood at a crossroads, ruled by fear. It had never fallen because no one understood it. The Wanderer studied the walls. They were not strong, they were misunderstood. Using geometry, acoustics, and psychology, the Wanderer revealed how the fortress manipulated perception. Echoes to sound like armies, angles to distort distance, rituals to enforce obedience. The people inside had been trapped by belief. The fortress fell without a single blow. Lesson: many prisons are maintained by confusion alone. Chapter 12, The Final Trial. What must not be carried. At the end of the road, the Wanderer reached a place where the wasteland was quiet. There were no enemies, no puzzles, no danger, only children. They asked the Wanderer to teach them everything, and for the first time, the Wanderer refused. Not all knowledge was passed on. The Wanderer withheld. How to build certain weapons, how to exploit certain fears, how to manipulate symbols beyond repair, how to optimize systems without understanding their moral cost. Instead, the Wanderer taught methods, how to test ideas, how to question certainty, how to learn without worship, how to discard knowledge that no longer served life. When asked why some things were forbidden, the Wanderer answered, open quote, because the old world did not fall from lack of knowledge, but from knowledge without wisdom. Close quote. The Wanderer left before being made a legend. Epilogue. What remains? Some say the Wanderer still walks. Others say the Wanderer died long ago and lives only in practices passed hand to hand, lesson to lesson, failure to correction. But when a person survives not by luck, not by force, but by understanding, when they choose the correct action because they know why it is correct, then the Wanderer is there, walking.